Then there are uterine structural abnormalities. There are several different pathologies that go under this umbrella. The first one is a septated uterus. Septated uterus is basically a congenital condition. So the girl child is born with this condition. It's where a thick, tough fibrous tissue divides the uterine cavity into two, and this condition can either be partial or complete. The reason this is so significant is because a septum within the uterine cavity will usually reduce the space within the uterine cavity, both for implantation to occur, but also the space that is available for the growing fetus to be able to grow and thrive in. Another thing that we have to consider is that when the IVF cycle happens and the embryo is inserted within the uterine cavity, it has to be done through the most gentle manner so that the catheter, that is the device that is used to insert the embryo, does not actually touch the walls of the uterus. Because when a foreign body touches the uterine wall, remember the uterus itself is muscle tissue, and so when it's touched it can go into contraction. When there is a septum in the uterine cavity, when the embryo is inserted, there's no way to determine whether it's going to attach to the endometrial lining or it's going to attach to the septum. Now the septum, remember I said, is thick, tough, fibrous tissue. It has no valid blood supply of its own. For that reason, a woman who has a septated uterus has a higher risk of implantation failures. And obviously, simple things like having had an ultrasound can identify whether or not a woman has a septated uterus. And the reason that's helpful is that it helps you as the woman who's going through the cycle to be prepared as to the chances that you have of this working or it may not working. And what that may do for you is to give you options. So remember, if your uterus is structurally unable to carry a baby, or if there are too many pathologies that will get in the way of implantation happening successfully, I would argue that it would be better for you to save the money that you would have spent on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cycles that keep failing over and over again, than deciding, right, my chances of going through a successful cycle is reduced because of factor A, B, C, D. The more factors that you have that could lead to IVF cycle failure, the greater the likelihood of the cycle actually failing. So it would be good for you to be real with yourself at the start of your cycle and decide, well, why don't we save that money and actually go for surrogacy, for example, which is more likely to give us a baby. And remember, with surrogacy, as long as everything is done properly and it's done well, it is still going to be your own biological child. So why don't you save yourself the stress and the money and go for a process that is more likely to happen, rather than not having done, the investigations properly prior to the IVF cycle and going through repeated failures because prior workup just wasn't done by your fertility specialist. Now,